Hey you guys, and welcome to my bookstores and bakery day out where I did some treasure hunting for used books. So we started the day out at this bakery that also had a smattering of books, which I loved. The owner was so friendly. We went ahead, since we were just starting the day, to grab a chai tea latte and also a specialty lemonade drink that she had. And then we perused her books for a little bit. I have been seeing this Tom Lake by Sarah Patchett book out and about, and I am hearing good things about it. I haven't really liked her works in the past, but I thought maybe I could give a try with Tom Lake. I was also really intrigued by these Kazuo Ishiguro books, but really am not looking to buy new books on this day. I really want to treasure hunt for used books, and so I continued on my hunt. So the first used bookstore that we arrived at was having a sidewalk sale of sorts where they had some paperback books outside. Lo and behold, I found another Kazuo Ishiguro book. Once inside, I headed straight back to the classic section. And this is a perfect example of, as I'm looking back at the footage, I'm like, why didn't I get that The Mill on the Floss by George Eliot? I also don't have Jude the Obscure by Hardy, so I should have grabbed that as well. And then look at these German Rilke books. Oh my goodness, there actually was a set of 3 of them. I would have loved them for my collection, but I wouldn't have been able to read them. I also am finding a lot of Sidney Sheldon, like really nice hardback with dust covers in some of these used bookstores. I haven't read him, but I do have one in my TBR list that I'm hoping to get to. As we continue this video, I will show you some books that I have DNF'd. And this is one that I wanted to highlight, The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I had this on my TBR for so long, I might have gotten to the second or third chapter and did not finish it. I bailed. The Whalebone Theatre by Joanna Quinn is another DNF for me, and when I see the cover, I'm tempted again, but so far have not tried again. I love these Flavia de Luce books. I wish I could find the first one. I don't necessarily need all of the books in this series, but I would put the first one on my shelf just in case I wanted to reread it. Next, we arrive at my favorite spot in the bookstore, which is the fantasy section. I found this Mary Stuart, The Last Enchantment. I actually have this already included in an omnibus, but I just love looking at covers, and I love her as an author. I also was looking for the second book in the Dark is Rising Susan Cooper series. It's middle grade, but I didn't find it. But what I did find was this Philip Pullman Amber Spyglass. I loved this cover, and I've read The Golden Compass, but I have not read the rest of this series. And then look at these beautiful vintage James Herriot books that were there as well. We ended this bookstore in the middle grade area and entered the new bookstore also in a middle grade young adult area. A Great and Terrible Beauty by Libba Bray is the first and only book I've read in that series, and then here we have one of these beautiful old Aragon series hardcovers. As a side note, does it drive anyone else bonkers when booksellers put stickers on the books, especially beautiful versions like this? I also love the graphic novel sections. We actually have all of the Amulet books. They're a little bit eerie and creepy, but my kids love them. And then we move into the adult section, and I have been looking for some Alice Hoffman books to include for this fall in my TBR list. So I was happy to see kind of some variety here. I love All the Light We Cannot See. I don't like the TV adaptation that they have made. I also read Cloud Cuckoo Land, and I don't know how to feel about that book. It certainly is not one I'd want on my shelf, but it was intriguing. I was intrigued to find this Carlos Ruiz Zafón book. I've read The Shadow of the Wind. I have not read any of his other works, but would be totally open to that idea. And would you believe this? I am always looking for Elizabeth Goudge books, and I found The Child from the Sea, but I already have that version, and so I left it there. Also, what do you guys think about omnibus versions of books? So for instance, I have this Complete Works of Shakespeare book. Mine's in a lot better condition, but I rarely open that. Usually if I'm going to read it, I just get the play version of it. I also found this Jane Austen omnibus, and again, I'm picking up one book at a time. I loved Willa Cather. I found this 3 complete novel omnibus version, but again, chose to leave it there. So I'm thinking sometimes an omnibus works for me and sometimes it doesn't. I also love the vintage classics section. I have found some of these Thrushwood books in other stores and love them so much. Here's this Bambi one, and if I liked the story, I would have grabbed it, but I am not fond of the book version of Bambi. And in the fantasy section, I found the Hannah Witten For the Wolf, For the Throne duology in great condition for a really inexpensive price, but I already have that set. I also found these beautiful Robin Hobb hardcover with dust jackets, but as I finish the Farseer trilogy, I've decided I don't think I'm going to continue in that. And then after admiring this cute little Tolkien section and Star Wars section, we decided to move on to our second bakery of the day to grab lunch and some delicious pastries. For our last bookstore of the day, we decided to go to the book barn in our area. It has something like hundreds of thousands of books, but it also has a beautiful lunch spot with a picnic table, and so we decided to settle there to eat our lunch. My kids were so cute. They brought a candle so that I could continue to celebrate my birthday, and it just was a really enjoyable time. Next, we enter the book barn. I've done videos on this location before. The floor creaks, everything is wood. It's really an incredible experience. I found this Jane Austen Persuasion version, which I loved, but my shelves are getting full for my classics, so I left it there. I also found this huge Les Mis. It's enormous. Again, chose to leave it there. Do I regret it? Slightly. There are many floors and actually secret rooms in this book barn, so we went ahead and went upstairs. I found a treasure trove of Japanese manga, like actually in Japanese. But alas, again, as I don't read Japanese, I decided to leave them there. So tell me, have you read Clan of the Cave Bear by Jean Auel? There are so many of the books that follow that in the series here. Too many. And then I found this section with old vintage Dune books, including Making of Dune, which I think is the movie from the 80s. I also found a couple Rosamund Pilcher books, September and also Snow in April, but I've decided books that have months in the title by Rosamund Pilcher are not my favorite. I also found this Adrian Tchaikovsky book, and I considered seriously getting it because I've heard really great things about him as an author, but this was in the middle of a series, so I decided not to. And then, of course, Mercedes Lackey also had a presence here, as did Juliette Marillier and Robin McKinley, two fabulous writers who have this fairy tale flair to their writing style. Now that I am home, I am going to share what I picked up and my haul for this used book treasure hunt day. So the first one that I wanted to share that I got is this Georgette Hare The Conqueror. I could not resist this vintage copy of this Georgette Hare with the dust jacket in pretty great condition. This is a story that seems to be historical fiction, so not her mystery or romance, Regency romance books that she has written. This is, although I will say there is romance in this, so maybe that's where that comes in, but this is about the conqueror from the Battle of Hastings on throughout his life. So this is, again, just a vintage book that I could not resist. Next, I grabbed this paperback version of C.S. Lewis's The Dark Tower and Other Stories. I am unfamiliar with C.S. Lewis's short stories. The back blurb talks about The Dark Tower being an eerie, highly entertaining fragment of a novel. 5 men gathered secretly in a room at Cambridge University to witness the workings of the chronoscope. And so this is like a bizarre sort of maybe time space travel, similar to his Out of the Silent Planet Perlandia series, maybe that sci-fi side of him. But it's short stories, and I thought I would like to try this. Next, I actually, because of the condition of this, the bookseller just let me have this. This is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have read The Buried Giant and have obviously seen the movie The Remains of the Day. I have checked this book out of the library 3 or 4 times and have not gotten to it. And so I figured if I had a copy at home, albeit kind of a beat up one, wouldn't matter, because then I would be more likely, I think, to just pick it up instead of feeling like, oh, it needs to go back to the library and just not getting to it. So I'm hoping by having it nearby will increase the chances of my picking it up, because I actually think I would enjoy it. Next, I found an Ursula K. Le Guin memoir, I believe, From Modern Literature to Menopause, From Utopian Thought to Rodeos. This classic collection of essays, Ursula K. Le Guin rose with her customary audacity over the intersecting arenas of literature, feminism, and social responsibility. Maybe it's not so much of a memoir as just kind of her thoughts. And believe it or not, inside of this, in the reviews, she has included the Dark Tower short story by C.S. Lewis. So it's kind of a weird reference there. Something also that I do love about this is that my version that I have here is annotated slightly by a former reader, which is something that I love about used books, is that you can see someone else's thoughts that has come before you. And I'm hoping that I love it enough to add my own annotations and then keep it. Ursula K. Le Guin wrote the Earthsea series. It starts out as a trilogy, and then there are 3 more books that make up another trilogy that kind of continue on. I am currently starting the 3rd book in the first trilogy, and it's not what I expected, but I am enjoying the slow pace of fantasy that is reminiscent of pre-Tolkien fantasy. It's a much slower pace. It just takes longer for character development, I think. But I'm liking it. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to grab this and see her thoughts more in a more nonfiction memoir style. Next, I picked up this ARC Amber Dusk. This is written by Lyra Celine. She wrote Feather So Black, which has recently just come out, and I think there is a pretty decent following for that book of hers. And so when I found this ARC, I went ahead and grabbed it. You know, there's this whole moral dilemma with paying for an ARC. I follow some groups on Facebook where they trade for ARCs, so they'll have like an Amazon wish list. If you want one of their ARCs, you would offer to pay for their Amazon wish list, and then they would send you an ARC, which, again, I think you're really getting into a gray area there of, are you paying for it if you're buying something on a wish list? But I have come across a few ARCs in used bookstores, and this one was nominal fee. I kid you not, I think it was like 50 cents. And so I don't take that much umbrage to buying an ARC for that. I have a couple ARCs that I currently own that I'm following on eBay that are up for hundreds of dollars. And so far no one has bought them, but I'm just curious about that whole ARC resale world of Bookstagram and BookTube and the publishing industry. But either way, I grabbed this older arc to see if I would enjoy her writing. I'm hoping that it's not too much romance and more fantasy. This was a glorious find. This is The Wicked Day by Mary Stewart. I went with a list of authors that I was looking specifically for as I was out used book treasure hunting for my birthday, and Mary Stewart was at the top of that list. And I love that I found this older hardcover with a dust jacket in really good condition version of this for not very much money. So Mary Stewart has written the Merlin trilogy of The Castle Cave, The Hollow Hills, and The Last Enchantment. And I have that in an omnibus version that I am planning on reading during my retelling era that is coming up hopefully in August. And this continues along that same thread of hers. It's not part of the official Merlin trilogy. This follows Mordred, who his parental lineage is questionable and a bit sordid, but it does follow that King Arthur tale really well. And so once I read that omnibus and her Merlin trilogy, I plan to continue with this. Another author that was on my list that I would be searching for that day was Marcia Willett. I recently was introduced to her by Michael McCarthy and Jen at Jen's Reading Life. I will be sure to link his Instagram and her channel down below. He actually had the pleasure of writing her a letter and thanking her so much for having a strong male character in one of her trilogies. And she wrote back to him, and so he just has a great connection with her. And so through our book club that we have, the Cozy Reader Book Club, he mentioned that he was interested in rereading it, and Jen was interested in reading it as well. And so I'm currently in the middle of that trilogy. Chadwick Chronicles, I think is the name of the series. But I also found 7 Days in Summer while I was out. In this, we follow Liv and Matt, who are married. There seems to be some strain in their marriage, but she takes their kids to the beach while he stays at home, which if there's a strain in their marriage, probably not the best idea. And then we also follow Baz and Sophia, who also come to the beach, and I think they possibly have a developing relationship. And so we just follow these people through 7 days in the summer. And so I will probably read this as well this summer. It looks like such a beautiful beach read. It's not a huge ask as far as like a time commitment. It's just over 250 pages and the font is pretty large and there's a lot of space. So I don't think it would take me long to get through this. And her books very much move fast. Like you're really invested in her characters and want to see where they end up. So I will probably move this up to the top of my TBR for this summer. Okay. The next two I also had on my list. I have Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman that is planned for me to read hopefully in September. And I've heard that Practical Magic isn't the best, but the early part of this series is actually pretty great. And so since I already had Magic Lessons, I went ahead and got the Rules of Magic. I think this is the second one in the series, and then Practical Magic is the third. I think. I have so many books right now that start with quotes by Henry David Thoreau. I can't remember right now what the other one was, but I feel like I've seen like 2 or 3 books I'm reading that have that. Anyway, so I grabbed this Book of the Month copy. In this, we followed the Owens family from a curse that began in the 1600s. If you've seen Practical Magic with Nicole Kidman and Sandra Bullock, you'll understand like the origin story. So I think Magic Lessons is the origin story of where the curse came from. I think this follows the curse, and then we get to Practical Magic, which is of course the sisters that we see in the movie. I have heard that they are either going to reboot Practical Magic or continue through that. I would definitely be down to watch it. Anyway, all of that to say, that's, I think, what Alice Hoffman is most well known for. And hopefully I enjoy this series. But again, the beauty of a used book haul is that you're not investing so much as you would with a new book. And then I got this one, which is Faithful. So I figure I probably will not get to this immediately or anytime soon. But again, I couldn't resist it. This is actually a really pretty cover. And so I grabbed Faithful. So in this, we follow Shelby. It sounds like Shelby, one fateful night, possibly does something that has serious consequences, ramifications in her life that leads her down a path of survivor's guilt. And I think this is her recovery story. So I love Mercedes Lackey, and I've been looking at this series mostly because of the cover. And then lo and behold, again, she was on my short list of authors to be looking for out on my day. I found this beautiful hardcover edition of this. Larry Dixon is her husband. I love that they write together. She is quite the prolific writer. I started reading her with the Valdemar series that she started writing in the 1980s. So this continues in that Valdemar world. And I'm not sure in the timeline where we are. I don't know if this is before Talia's story or not. But we follow a boy, Arrows, whose town is ransacked by barbarians, and he escapes into a nearby forest. And he is connected up with some men who teach him how to be a healer. And through this time in the forest, meanwhile, his village that was ransacked by barbarians, I think, comes back, and people come back and live there. And he eventually comes out of the forest, and I think it is his reconnecting with the village people with these magical healing skills that he has and everything that he's learned in the forest, and probably some revenge parts of this, since the barbarians basically ruined his life. So I love the owl. I want to see how the owl plays in this, and I'm excited to get back into the Valmarian world. This was not an author that I was specifically looking for. This is Silvia Moreno Garcia, Gods of Jade and Sorrow. This is a Mexican folklore tale that is mixed in with Jazz Age and a character named Cassiopeia. I've heard really intriguing things about this author, and so I figured I would just go ahead and grab it. Again, used book haul means not a lot of investment. This was written in 2019, so pretty recent. So I will see what I think of this, and I guess report back. Lastly, I found a Victoria Speedwell novel, A Murderous Relation by Deanna Rayborn. I have the first one in the series, which is A Curious Beginning. I have not yet read it, but I hope to soon. This one is the fifth book in the series, I think. And it's actually a really long series. So I'm hoping when I read A Curious Beginning that I love Victoria Speedwell and I love the mystery and everything, so that I will continue the series, and then I'll just have this one lined up. The cover is beautiful. I love the dog that is down there. It's obviously like a masquerade situation. So I have heard really good things about Victoria Speedwell, and so we're going to see how it goes. And again, I'll have this one lined up for hopefully if I get to this book in the series. That's it for my used treasure book haul. I would love to hear if you have anything good to say about any of these that I found. Let me know also if you saw me kind of go buy some that you thought, no, you should be getting that one. Let me know, because I know that happens to me a lot when I see people out book shopping or in little free libraries where I'm like, why did you leave that one? It's possible that I already had it, or it's possible I made a really bad decision. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time.